Hey everyone, this is Fernando doing another video for Modern Survivalists. In this case, the topic is cell phones. This is my old trusty iPhone 3G. It's only 3G, it's not even a 3GS. 3G, it's been with me for a few years now, 3 years, at least 3 years, yeah, sure. And it has been working very well. It's, it is a little bit dated these days in comparison to what's out there, but no complaints, especially with the OtterBox case. Man, I've dropped this phone at the very least 30, 40 times maybe. And I dropped it when rushing across a street in concrete, in cement, I've dropped it everywhere. I also took it when doing shooting in Buenos Aires during the Friday night sessions of practical shooting, the different stages. I wouldn't leave my phone. Some of the guys would leave the phone in their range bags, and I didn't do that. Why? Because I wanted to keep it as real as possible. The guys would tell me, it's going to be slowing you down, you're going to be dropping the phone. Well, dropping it isn't a problem. It does not break with this case. And I just wanted to keep it as real, as similar to when on the street as possible. And on the street I would have my cell phone. So I didn't want to change anything. Sometimes during certain drills, especially when it was required to go prone on the floor and like with those cutout vehicles pretending to be under a car shooting from there, sometimes I would drop it, bump it and such. The case always got it through. The case always protected the phone and kept it working and working order. It is not waterproof, it is not even dust proof because dust does get through, but the impact resistance is actually pretty good. It's I think it's a fantastic phone, and it's a good combination of having a smartphone but still having a phone that is very, very tough. For some guys, the idea of the smartphone, they just don't roll with it, just want a simple phone to make phone calls. I think that it's good to take advantage of the technology. But as you see, I don't buy always the latest, newest thing. So, well, those of you guys that have been watching my videos know that I was looking into something else, and I decided to get a new phone, and I did take my time to analyze all the possibilities. I ended up with this Galaxy Note 2. Now a little bit of like the mindset behind all this, especially given that a phone is a pretty important, it's a key element of your EDC setup. I think that it's way beyond just doing phone calls, especially with one of these things that does so much stuff. I wanted to go. The first thing was, getting a new phone. The new phone that I was getting had to be something that would last at least a few years. 2, 3, 4 years. If there's really no leap in technology, I don't see the point in changing it. One of the things that kind of forced me to finally make the change was that the battery was starting to fail me here. It wasn't lasting that long either, and that's kind of a weak link that you cannot ignore, so to speak. So if I was going to be changing, I wanted to change with something that was, good stuff that would be lasting quite a bit. And that in mind, I looked at, the iPhone 5 and was looking at the Samsung Galaxy, especially the Galaxy S3, which was like, a pretty big thing in terms of cell phone, and the Note 2, which is like the bigger version of it. And first of all, getting rid of iPhone, leaving iPhone and going to Android. And Apple has that reputation of being like a benevolent dictator in terms of how they do things, kind of force you to do things their way. It does work. Apple works in general, but I wanted and liked the idea of having more freedom, and that's what you get with these things, with the Samsung Galaxy stuff. Android is, much more options, much more freedom of choice. That's pretty neat. The screen is fantastic. Well, but I'm going to be getting into that in a second. Then once I decided to finally leave Apple behind after so many years, once I decided that, I had to make my mind between the Galaxy S3, well now you have the S4 as well, but basically the smaller version, or the Note 2, the bigger one. Between those two, of course, I like the idea of a bigger screen. Now, because you know, this is something that I've talked about before, that preparedness, survival is not something that you do on weekends or a hobby. For those of us that do it seriously, it's a lifestyle. And in accepting that, it also means that every decision you make, everything is filtered through that mindset of yours. So that being kept in mind, whatever cell phone I was going to be getting, it had to be tough. It had to be something that if dropped, it would not break. It would still work. What's the point of having a phone that breaks whenever you drop it? I don't quite understand it. So I wanted a tough case to go along with that. So given that the Note 2 is already pretty big, adding a case was you know, something of consideration. Of course, the advantage is having the big screen and also the battery. The battery here is huge. It's 3,100 milliamperes. The battery lasts forever, which is something that I'm really starting to like. After a few days of using it and such, I'm really starting to like the battery never dying. You just keep going and going. That's pretty neat. But that comes, you know, with the trade-off. The disadvantage is that the bigger it is, the nicer the screen, the more battery you have, the less convenient it is in terms of size. My concern is the Note 2 just too big to a point where it's uncomfortable? Then I would go with the S3. What I did was watch many of the reviews, you know, like the things I do myself, you know, the reviews that give you information for making your decisions. I looked at some of the reviews. I paid special attention to the reviews made by women, smaller frame women with little hands and such. And I noticed that in general, there's always, you know, different opinions and such, but in general they would say that in spite of being so big and such, they just liked it. They just liked the screen, that once they got used to it, this just didn't do it anymore. Bigger is better, sure it is. So that to me made sense. Yes, you don't reach as neatly as you do with a smaller screen. That's clearly enough. Here, for example, you have a good grip on it and you still reach all over. Here, if you have a better grip like that, you kind of run out of finger, but you have to change it so as to reach all over the screen, and you don't have as much of a tight grip on it. So it is bigger. But yeah, absolutely. I see why it is that people like it so much. I see why it is that people say it's like the best phone offered by Samsung. I think it's fantastic. It's going to be lasting me for a few years unless there's anything specifically wrong with it. But you know, yeah, it does so many stuff. It is, to a point, this is not going to be a Samsung Galaxy Note phone review per se. It's more of why it is that I see that it makes sense. It makes sense to me not only because the screen is bigger, it's more comfortable. When it comes down to it, if this is all you have, left, it is kind of between a computer, cell phone, tablet. You know, it is very close. That's why I suppose they call it like phablets, like in between a cell phone and a tablet. I see why that is. You can do a lot of stuff with this phone. You can do a lot of it. It's not a computer, but it's very close. Close enough for you know, for being a great asset if there's ever problems, and this is all you have left. If all you have left is this, I much rather have this than just have an ordinary phone just that's capable of doing phone calls. Of course, the more talking specifically about preparedness, survival, crisis, events where there's you know, an urgency for communication, you know, the cell phone, any cell phone where you're punching numbers and make a phone call, that rocks. If it's a tough one that resists abuse, even better. Now with a smartphone, you also have Wi-Fi many times, and this is something that I saw being reported of what happened in Chile with the earthquake. There was no cell phone lines, but there were Wi-Fi hotspots for the victims. And if you had one of these babies, you were able to go online and do your thing. one final thing that I'm going to be mentioning before wrapping this up. There are models that have a built-in FM radio. It's not all of them. I think that most of the American Note 2 ones don't have a built-in FM radio, and it's probably working on the Wi-Fi signal. You have an app that has, you know, FM radio, but it's not built-in. This one has the FM radio built-in. That's something that I like to have, because if there's ever a situation where there's no cell phone, there's no internet, there's no nothing, at least you have a radio here to listen to the news and see what's going on. That seemed to be quite a bit of an advantage. Kind of running out of time here, over 10 minutes. I'd like to keep it short, but you know, it is just very nice. I'm going to be doing a review of it in terms of all the apps after a few more weeks when I get more of a hang of it. But as of right now, this is what I want to tell you guys, and you know, maybe help you make your own mind as well. Guys, that's all for now. Take care. Have a great day. See you on our next video.